Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would share that we had a very good meeting yesterday with the South Dakota delegation, and I appreciated your time and your efforts in visiting about the Black Hills facilities, including the hospital at Hot Springs. I just wanted, first of all, I want to just briefly touch on that issue, and then I'd like to delve into a couple of other items. First of all, would you be able to assure the committee that the skip items in the fiscal year 16 budget request regarding the Black Hills healthcare system are not an indication of a predetermined decision for the Hot Springs Hospital?
Yes, sir, Senator Rounds. As we talked yesterday, the money that was in there for Rapid City is what we need to do at Rapid City. There's no indication of any decision being made on Hot Springs. I have made no decision. We're still collecting data, and the study's still being done, and that's why we met with you.
Thank you, sir. Look, I've listened as each member around here has invited you to come in, and I know that we've talked about coming to South Dakota. You've got more things on your plate than you can imagine, and yet there seems to be kind of an underlying current here, and that is that you've stepped into a position in which you've got a huge and very unwieldy agency, administration, and you've started with a reorganization. You've got My VA, and I noticed that you've got some charts laid out for us in here. When you take a look at the organizational chart that you've inherited, I had one of your employees come up to me and lay out what they had kind of charted out. They had 13 layers that they had been able to count. You can't run an organization that's got that kind of a program. And I'm just, I guess, number one, it looks like with both Senator Tester and Senator Sullivan are talking about the issues way down deep, and they suggested as culture. I'm going to go a little bit deeper and think that you can have real good people working in an organization, but if the organizational system, the layout, the map for getting approval and so forth and making changes doesn't work, you can have good people that just get frustrated and pretty soon they don't want to be there. You've got folks on the ground, doctors that do a great job with the individual veterans coming in, and yet the frustration that they have with trying to get changes made that they think would make it better, they become part of the issue that you're walking into. Can you talk a little bit about the organizational structure and what you'd like to see done and what progress you've been able to make with regard to the organization and how that may impact the ability for those folks that are at ground level to be able to respond?
Your insight's absolutely right. As I went around to the roughly 100 facilities I've been at, the number one feedback I get from the lowest level employee is, I'm a prisoner of a system I can't change. So what we're trying to do is change the culture. We're trying to empower people to know that they can create change. We've stood up teams across the country that have people with similar interests in working on various issues. We're teaching them Lean Six Sigma technology so that they can make changes to the processes they work. Secondly, I've met with all the union leaders, and I've said that 65% of our employees are unionized, that it's their job to help us empower these people, and they've all been right on with that. Third, one of the things we don't do well is we're not a connected organization. We have vertical silos in our 9 lines of business, but we also have horizontal silos, if I can say it that way. That's one of the reasons we had to go from the 9 geographic maps as a first step to 1. That's a big enabler. Now we can take on other things that we couldn't take on. All of these things have to be sequenced. Next point would be that in addition to changing the maps, it's important that we change the organization structure. Today, as we sit here, when I go to the HR, the human resources leader of VA, and I say, I'd like the names of our top 50 top development candidates, she can't produce that because our functions are not connected from top to bottom in the organization.
Doesn't work.
Companies don't run this way. So we've got to build those connections in. We're in the process of doing that. I am as frustrated, we are as frustrated as all of you are, that it takes time to create these changes because the changes all have to be sequenced, and we have to make sure the employees are involved in creating those changes, that it's just not top down, because we got to get it to stick. I'm bringing in the very best people I know from the private sector to help us. We brought a chief customer service officer in. We've brought in a person to work on strategic partnerships. I'm setting up an external advisory board, and you will recognize many of the names on that board. They're people who have done this before in the private sector, and it's all going to accelerate our process and our progress.
Can you give me a timeline?
I wish I could. We're going to make substantial progress in the next year. I think in the next year you're going to be able to see. I don't think there'll be anyone who won't have seen the progress, and you certainly won't have seen the same structure we're in today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Round.